Welcome to another episode of the Boxing Lockdown powered by SA Boxing Talk. Let me welcome the gentlemen, Cyril, Hayden, Devon. Welcome, guys. It's either good or bleak news that we've just heard that there will be an extension to our national lockdown for another 2 weeks by the Honourable President Cyril Ramaphosa, and I think he's done the right thing. And what that simply means, gentlemen, is that we get to spend more time doing these shows together. Now, the topic that we're going to be talking about is our perspective, our feelings on the No MAS. It's been on Super Sports. By now, you surely have watched it. It's very intriguing. Eric Drost is a producer who I know personally. He also did Assault in the Ring, and it was brilliantly done. But right at the end, when we were waiting for Duran to come out and give his honest reason why he said no MAS, he didn't. So I'm going to start, gentlemen, by saying my opinion is I think Duran, although wasn't in shape like he was in the first contest, and he simply was just frustrated. Leonard changed the pattern of the first fight to the second. You could see strategically he changed what he was doing. He wasn't leading, he was waiting. And it was almost like the bull versus matador, and Duran simply couldn't adjust, got frustrated, and thought, you know what, F it, I've had enough. And that's what my perspective is. Devin, let me start with you, your perspective on No MAS and why.
Well, it's a perspective of also what we already know, the diuretics story, the fact that Sugar Ray caught him when he was like less than 3 months from the first fight, when he was ballooning up in weight, making his life harder to lose that weight, to make a decent camp. Was he training properly because he thought he was the man? He was a rock star in New York. He was a rock star back home. It was all a perfect conspiracy for him to actually go up and give that fight up like he did, because I think, he's got beaten. He said, I got paid. Let's get the hell out of here. Sorry, no MAS.
Cyril, your opinion?
I think obviously building up Duran I don't think he was fully ready. His camp must have been held just for him to make weight. He must have been drained. I don't think, So he got to a point where, as you say, he was frustrated and he just couldn't do it anymore. It's like, okay, well.
Hayden, the story in the documentary was that he got paid $8 million before he got into the ring. And also the timeline, which Devin talks about, was 6 months. So he won the fight, the first fight, in a very competitive fight, clearly winning though, but partied like a rock star, as Devin says, and then came into camp very overweight. The rumor was close to 200 pounds. Do you think, obviously I'm going to ask you a question that we all know the answer. The turnaround time between the first fight and the second fight just wasn't enough time, was it?
No, not if you're going to live a lifestyle like that, of course. And from reading Sugar Ray's book as well, just seeing the intensity of his training camps and, how he was actually the favorite to win the first fight against Duran, and Duran actually, surprised a lot of people by getting the win. Obviously, the second fight, Duran going in as the favorite. The lifestyle catches up to you. Sugar Ray Leonard is a relentless boxer. As we see, he trains like an absolute machine. There's reasons why he won that fight.
Well, he might have been the favorite going into the first fight, Devin, but let me ask you, with the only one loss against Esteban Jesus, and he revenged that loss, and then he killed him, knocking him out in 11 rounds, Duran was kind of billed as a monster, almost like a Golovkin kind of guy, where he come in and tear you apart. And he was very, very aggressive in his approach in press conferences, in the build-up to fights. Besides the fact that Leonard fought the wrong fight, do you agree with this comment that Duran got to Leonard mentally and he broke him down mentally before the first fight?
Yeah, I do think that there's some substance to that. But remember, then he's probably a guy who ran his whole career acting on intimidation, just like Mike Tyson was running his whole career acting on intimidation. And the reason why he bit Holyfield's ear, because he was getting it given back to him and he wasn't good at taking it. And I think that's exactly the same manifestation that it was 30 years earlier in the life of Hands of Stone.
Cyril, the fact that they were talking in the documentary that, Duran, if you look back at his career, people remember as the no MAS situation. But the producers of the documentary said, well, wait a minute. He went on and he won more world titles. Knocked out Davy Moore for the junior middleweight championship. Then he came back and he beat Iran Barkley in 1989, which was the Ring Magazine Fights of the Year. I believe he dropped Barkley, in the 9th round, winning a split decision. Did that taint his career? Because in the documentary, it alludes to the fact that both fighters went on to obviously achieve great things. Leonard beating Hagler was the pinnacle in '87. But how will you review, you as a boxing person, how would you remember Duran? Because for me, I won't remember Duran on the fact that he quit in the 8th round against Leonard.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody should review him based on him quitting against Leonard. I mean, this is possibly the greatest lightweight fight of all time. He's done so much. He's done so much and went up in weight divisions, won titles in other divisions. So I think he's one of the greatest. You can't just base his whole career off just one fight where he gave up.
Hayden, Nat Fleischer, the founder of Ring Magazine, voted and said that Duran was the greatest lightweight who ever breathed. Do you agree with that? Do you believe that he was the greatest lightweight of all time?
Yeah, up until this date, I think it's a fair comment. I don't think you can. I mean, there are other lightweights, and you can compare, but I think his name, his story, his legacy. I don't think there has been such, as I said, up until this date, that have been, obviously people might, especially the younger generation, might be screaming names like Vasily Lomachenko, but these are very, you're looking at history now, it's definitely got to be Duran.
And Dev, let me ask you, how would you remember Leonard? Would you remember, it goes back to the four kings, Hagler, Hearns, Duran, and Leonard. All four fighters made each other to a point. But for me, when I look at Leonard and I look at him, for me, I'm going to be honest with you guys, Leonard's my ultimate fighter. He's for me, the greatest fighter who, in my career, that I've ever seen, that I absolutely adore, and to me, he can do no wrong. And I believe he's one of the greatest fighters of all time. But do you think that Duran, and again, in the documentary, they allude to the fact that it wasn't so much that Leonard won the fight, it was more the fact that Duran quit. How will you remember Sugar Ray Leonard?
Well, just before I answer that, when you guys are talking about who was the greatest lightweight of all time, I'm sure the Mexicans are going to say a guy called Julio was better than Duran was at his prime. So it depends who you're asking that question to. How I'm going to remember is how I still remember him today, as a guy who has got his faculties, who's been a success both inside and outside the ring, carries himself with absolute aplomb in public. He is a inspirational leader to the youth as well as to the old, the people who watched him, and he's still very much in the public eye to this day. Obviously, the Contender Series he had a big hand in, so he gave back to the sport of boxing by putting it on TV for the average Joe to be able to digest and see their heroes. In terms of how I remember him among the four, numero uno, baby. I don't think that there's a better fighter of the four than Mr. Ray Leonard.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, the ultimate was '87 when he beat Hagler, and I actually think that was the point where he should have retired. I mean, he beat Lalonde, and then a lot of guys don't actually know this, that Leonard and Duran fought for a third time, and Leonard won on points, a unanimous decision. But it was just after Duran won the title against Iran Barkley at middleweight, and I believe, my memory serves me right, they fought at super middle. Irrespective, Duran lost against Leonard for kind of the rubber match, but both fighters weren't what they used to be thereafter. Do you think? Yeah, here's a question, because both fighters went on longer than they should have. Duran obviously fought against, was it William Joppy for the WBA middleweight championship and got drilled. Leonard obviously lost to Terry Norris in 1991 at Madison Square Garden, announced his retirement. And then in 96, he came back and he got stopped against Hector Camacho. I thought that Leonard should have stopped after beating marvelous Marvin Hagler. Maybe he should have carried. I mean, the fight where he won, just something which is pretty funny, where he won 2 world titles in one night, the light heavyweight championship and the super middleweight championship, all in one night for both WBC versions against Donnie Lalonde. Maybe then he should have called it a day. But when do you think, Hayden? Let me ask you, when do you think Leonard should have called it a day?
He should never have come back in his 40s. Let's be honest. He should never have come back. And you can go back and look at the now. Huge gap between those fights and the fights what he had in his prime. You know, they you don't have to be an expert on boxing to know when someone should stop, because he was at his heights when he originally called his first retirement, and coming out of retirement. You see it with other boxers, Roy Jones Jr., the likes. I mean, no one comes back the same.
So also, Leonard had the detached retina. I mean, he was comprehensively whooped against Terry Norris, dropped twice. I mean, pure ego and missing the limelight and money. Do you think that's what drew him back in '96 against Camacho?
Possibly. History is filled with fighters who either carry on for too long or make a comeback, an ill-advised comeback, and it's just most of the time it doesn't work out. He definitely should not have come back. I think it was probably an ego thing. Yeah.
The fact that Devin, the fact that Iran Barkley knocked out Tommy Hearns to win the WBC middleweight championship, and obviously beating him again in the future in a future contest, when Duran obviously at the age, what was the age? I think it was 36 at the time when he fought Iran Barkley in 1989. That was a great fight, and a lot of fighters sometimes save that last one great performance right at the end of the careers. So if I look back at Duran, to me that would have been a perfect opportunity for him to call it a day on a high. Yes, fighting Leonard for the third rubber match, I think directly afterwards, I believe, I might be wrong, was a lot of money. But there and then, after that, he should have retired. Your call, bearing in mind the fact that he fought until 2001.
Well, think of it this way. Back in those days when those guys were in their primes was what? The ages of 26 to 28 to 30. By the time you were about 36, that was already a cutoff age for a lot of those fighters. Whereas today, 50 is sometimes a cutoff age for a lot of professional fighters. And I think that's also because times have changed, medical science and so forth. But what was Duran involved in after his boxing career? Like, was boxing the only thing he knew? Was it the only thing he had? And was he really good at spending money? Those are the three questions that will really sort of give you an answer as to why he carried on up until 2001.
Guys, we're going to move on to the next topic, and it's going to be quite spicy, considering there's a lot of old school boxing guys who think that the olden day fighters would be way, way too much for modern day fighters. So we're going to stick with Duran and we're going to stick with Leonard. And Cyril, let me ask you, a prime Roberto Duran over 12 rounds against Floyd Mayweather Jr. That's a good question. What weights? Let's do it at lightweight. Let's do it at lightweight.
Well, lightweight. Well, I think Floyd Mayweather's best weight was lightweight anyway. I would, as much as I say Duran was possibly the best lightweight ever, and I'm probably going to get crucified for this, I might lean a little bit towards Floyd simply because of his ability to adjust. Floyd.
All right. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you, Devin, the same fight but over 15 rounds.
Okay, that doesn't matter with Floyd. He's fit enough for 15 rounds, no doubt about that. I consider Floyd's lightweight years, though, as the years in which he had his legs. So that's also another big factor. Floyd at welterweight was a guy who didn't fight as much with his legs as a Floyd of lightweight, who used to wreck guys with his legs. Leg foot movement versus a heavy-handed Duran over 15 rounds. Oh, man. Yeah, I got to say, he gets caught by a dirty fighter, which is going to be Duran, because Floyd has shown that the Hispanic-styled fighters are his problem.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you. I think Duran either stops him late or just, grinds out a points decision. Very much in the same kind of mold and same kind of pattern as Leonard in the first fight. Hayden, your opinion on that fight? You can go over 12 rounds and 15 rounds.
Okay, yeah, either way. Marcus Maidana, Oscar De La Hoya, what's the one he fought?
Castillo.
Yeah. That's a very debatable decision, the first fight, guys. Very debatable. Let's not go there.
All the same. Roberto Duran tops all those guys, does he not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not even a race.
That's why I'm going to pick Roberto Duran at lightweight for that fight.
Okay, so let's lead to Mayweather against Ray Leonard, 12 and 15 rounds. I'm going to answer there's only one winner, and that's Sugar Ray Leonard. Only because the guy's just really good. He knows how to adapt. He showed his mettle, even though he lost against Duran in that first fight, where when the tough got going and it was really hot in the kitchen, he was prepared to stay there until it was boiling in the kitchen. And I think he was just too versatile. He could box with the front foot, box with the back foot, counter punch. And I just think his volume of punches and that jab, he had such an underrated jab, would have been way too much for Mayweather. Cyril, I know you're smoking. Maybe you disagree with me. What's your opinion on that fight?
One of Floyd's biggest assets is his ability to adjust and adapt.
Yeah, agreed.
Leonard is pretty much the same in that, but I think he has a little bit more pop as well. So I think Leonard probably takes it against Floyd.
All right, Hayden, you.
Yeah, it's actually a difficult fight. I mean, to pick. I really like Sugar Ray Leonard as well. I wasn't really one of Mayweather's biggest fans when he was active, but most certainly you do appreciate the art of boxing after his career. And I think it'll be a difficult fight. Even for Sugar Ray Leonard, it'll be a difficult fight because now we're looking at Money Mayweather, not Pretty Boy, because Pretty Boy is a bit more reckless and Money is more decisive and, he picks his punches. Would he have tried to make it a boring fight? I don't know. Because you think about Manny Pacquiao and I know they're different Southpaw Orthodox, but I'm a bit stuck on if Sugar Ray would have found all the gaps that he would have necessarily found against some of the other fighters. I think the defensive style would have been quite difficult for him to get in on, which makes it a very competitive fight.
And I agree with you from a defensive point of view. But, Devin, let me ask you this. The fact that as Mayweather got on and moved up to welterweight, his work rate wasn't the same as when he was a junior light and lightweight, where Leonard's prime was as a welterweight where he threw lots of punches. The fact that he couldn't land, but the fact that he was working and out-punching Mayweather, would that have been a difference over 12 or 15 rounds?
No, to me, I think you got to go look at career wins, quality of opposition that Leonard beat. It's nothing like what Floyd has actually got to offer. Like you can't have the same names in comparison that Ray Leonard took care of. But then, you're comparing two relatively modernistic age fighters, where it's always going to be quite a difficult one to sort of, you're going to have a lot of people who are going to say Floyd wins. If you really want an old school versus new school fight, why don't you throw Willie Pep in against someone like Floyd Mayweather? And then you got a real sort of okay, well, this is where boxing has evolved. Therefore, I think Willie Pep loses for argument's sake.
Well, let's throw in Walker Smith, Sugar Ray Robinson versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. You got, in my opinion, the greatest fighter of all time who ever breathed against a modern day great like Floyd Mayweather. So the old school guys, and I'm not that old, but I'm one of those guys who think Ray Robinson would have played with Mayweather. He just had that kind of boxing brain where no one could come close to him in his prime. Hayden, your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, Ray Robinson's the ultimate. He could do everything, couldn't he? He is literally. I mean, he's like the Pele of football. He's the best that ever lived. He's going to be the guy that we always compare to. Every single boxer is going to be compared to Sugar Ray Robinson. Are they as good as him? Same like the heavyweights. They're all compared to Muhammad Ali. I know that maybe some people think that other heavyweights are better, but he's certainly the name in that division. Sugar Ray Robinson, particularly in the welterweight division and around that area, is the man.
Hey, Cyril, let me ask you this question. The fact that, Hayden alluded to the fact that a lot of people will try and make the comparison to Sugar Ray Robinson. The new school guys, the new era of boxing fans, all they know is Mayweather and all they know is Lomachenko. How do you re-educate those guys? And I mean, obviously during the lockdown, we've been watching a lot of 211, watching old fights of Sugar Ray Robinson. But those guys who are new to the sport, who don't really necessarily want to watch black and white fights, for example, how do you educate them? How do you educate them without getting into a confrontation or losing your temper with them? Because, Devin's smiling, and we've seen it on his group so many times before where someone will say, because he's unbeaten, he must be the greatest. But that's such a lot of bullshit. Okay, you're laughing too, so maybe explain it.
Well, it is difficult to explain to someone, who's maybe been watching just the new school guys. I mean, having an unbeaten record doesn't necessarily make you the best. I mean, it comes down to when did you fight your best opponents, or at what point in their careers they were at. There's so many things that you got to think about. And I suppose you try and explain that to someone. Of course, then most of the time they're not going to listen to you. So I think for me, I'd just be glad that they're watching boxing.
Yeah, true. So I'm going to throw a curveball at you guys, which I've just actually thought about this now. Hayden, Roy Jones Jr. middleweight versus Sugar Ray Leonard at middleweight.
Roy Jones Jr.
You know what? I was just thinking the same thing, and I was kind of thinking, I can see that. I can actually see that. Devin, your opinion on that fight?
Oh, I'm going to say Roy Jones Jr., but what I was, if I was going to look at the previous question that you asked, there's certain things that I think people don't take into account between the generations of what training is now as compared to what it was. Nutrition, fitness, and also what gloves are we fighting with here? Because those guys fought in gloves loaded with concrete in comparison to what they're fighting with now. Those kind of things have changed. The technology has changed. Hand wrapping, I'm sure, has changed as well. So, are all things an absolutely perfect square playing field? Then I'd probably say, Floyd's got a much higher chance of winning against the Sugar Ray Robinson type than most people give him credit for, because, he's a modern fighter with modern science behind him, modern eating techniques, modern training techniques. It's not like you go and pound a uphung carcass in the fridge at a butcher's store, it's different.
Yeah, but having said that, if Ray Robinson was in this era too, he would also have all those advantages too.
I suppose. But if you're taking one from that age and one from this age and sticking them together, I think it's going to be a weird fight to watch.
Yeah, that is pretty weird. Cyril, Marvelous Marvin Hagler versus Roy Jones Jr., middleweight.
It's a difficult one. Anybody against Roy Jones Jr. for me is I'm going to be biased. But Marvelous Hagler, sure, he was incredible. Roy Jones Jr. is my favorite of all time, but I think I'd go with Hagler.
Hayden, pick a fight for us.
All right. So Tyson Fury against Mike Tyson. Let's go for it.
Mike. Okay. So I tell you what I think. I think the old school guys are going to hate me on this. But I think Fury just would have talked such a fight. I don't think he would have been intimidated by Mike. I really don't. I mean, I know the two of them are pretty good friends. It's a tough fight to call. I think that Fury stylistically would have given Tyson a nightmare with his long limbs, keeping him at bay. It would have been hard for him to get inside. And you've seen Tyson Fury's style of when a guy does come in, he'll climb up and he's got a habit of leaning on him. I get a feeling that Tyson wasn't a big heavyweight in that area. He was like 220, 215. I think the weight would have been a big factor. And I like to think Tyson Fury in a disqualification. I think Mike Tyson would have mentally broken down. And I think he would have resorted to maybe headbutting or, trying to break the guy's arm or maybe taking a bite, I just think Fury's style for him was all wrong for him.
Yeah, and obviously this is officially me taking over the show. Devin, what do you think of Mike inside boxing affecting Tyson Fury?
Damn, it's a hard one, man. Because Mike did one thing brilliantly, and he was good at staying really low and buzzing his way into the wheelhouse where he'd be able to hit you in the stomach. I think Mike Tyson beats Tyson Fury, to be quite honest. I don't know why. I just think that he'll be too fast for Tyson Fury to deal with. I think his ferocity, the way that he moved his head, he doesn't stay still. I've got a feeling that Mike Tyson's good enough to beat Tyson Fury, but I got one for you guys.
Hold on, you haven't asked Cyril what he thinks.
I'll give Cyril one. Devin can go. Cyril, what do you think of the mental warfare before the fight? I mean, you're looking at two guys that are exceptional in the presses. Mike Tyson's very vile. Tyson Fury is very witty. I mean, how do you think that'll play out?
I think Tyson Fury wins the mental games. I think he's always on top of that. You've seen him over and over again. I think Mike Tyson at times used to lose it a bit, used to get upset, whereas Tyson Fury was always on top of the guys. You'd see him laughing and throwing jabs, well, verbal jabs at people. It's brilliant.
Just going back, I mean, when you saw Tyson against James Quick Tillis, he struggled. He struggled with the movement. He struggled with a quick jab. And that's why I think you would have given Mike Tyson headaches. Devin, your fight that you wanted to discuss.
All right. Pernell Whitaker up against Mikey Garcia at 140.
Whitaker all day, every day. Easy work.
Easy work.
Easy work.
Easy
work. Easy work. All day, every day. You got to remember, Whitaker.
Wait. What about Terence Crawford? Rather.
Hold on, Hayden. Stay. Just calm down. Let's just discuss this. Hold on. Slow down. For me, besides Mayweather, I believe that Whitaker is probably one of the greatest defensive fighters in boxing history, next to Willie Pep. And I think Floyd Mayweather Jr. equally is probably one of the greatest defensive geniuses in all of boxing history. I just think that Whitaker could find a way. Like when he got that draw against Chavez, guys, he got stiff. He beat Chavez. So I just think Whitaker at his prime, even at 140, he was really good. He moved up. He beat Rafael Pineda, who knocked out the late Roger Mayweather to win the IBF championship. So I think he was really good at 140 as well. And I just think Pernell Whitaker was just too slick, too fast. Some felt that he beat De La Hoya. I didn't. I thought it was a very close fight, but I thought he just lost. But yeah, at 140, I mean, there's 7 days a week. Sorry, Devin.
Never mind.
Hayden, you wanted to have another fight. What was yours?
I was going to say, like, obviously, because Mikey Garcia is naturally a featherweight, right? So, I mean, that would be fair to match him at right? But the thing is, like, what about Terence Crawford and Pernell Whitaker? I think that's a great fight.
It's a boring fight. I think it's a boring fight. I think it's a bore. I don't think it's a great fight. It's like, I mean, I don't think it'll be a fan favorite fight to watch.
How about this, Colin? I mean, you'll know this more detailed than any one of us here. Did Pernell Whitaker have more trouble with left-handers or right-handers, or did it not matter at all?
No, it didn't really matter. I mean, he was just so. I mean, listen, to all the guys following this podcast with us, do yourself a favor and go and take a look at Pernell Whitaker's fights in his prime. The guy was just amazing. I mean, he was just so cute. He'd turn his shoulder and pop you up the middle. One of the greatest southpaws in boxing history, and honestly, one of the most defensive geniuses in boxing history. Very interesting. He has a fight. Maybe you guys aren't well versed. What about Hector Camacho in his prime against a guy like Mikey Garcia, Dev?
Oh, Camacho in those gladiator trunks, man. I would like to think that Mikey's got enough to beat Hector Camacho. Yeah, I would say that Mikey probably beats him, not handily, close decision. Maybe UD, not SD. I'm not sure. What do you think?
The thing is with Camacho, if you hit him hard early on in the fights, like really hard, he would kind of go into his shell. But he was also really, really good. I mean, he was a special fighter. Cyril, your thoughts on that?
I'd also go with Mikey. I think Mikey, as you say, Camacho gets hit hard early on. Mikey can punch. He could punch, especially at featherweight. So yeah, I'd go with Mikey. Yeah.
Hayden, Lomachenko versus Duran, 12 rounds at lightweight.
Oh, that's a spectacle, isn't it? I mean, but I mean, again, this could be one of those fights where we're talking about Prime Lomachenko, right? I mean,
Prime Lomachenko and Prime Duran. Well, Duran's prime years were at lightweight.
Geez, Loma could make him miss, hey? And he could do... Look, Loma's handed out a no mas once against Nicholas Walters.
Yes, but remember his first world title against Salido, when Salido turned it into a dogfight. Devin, your opinion on that fight?
That's exactly what I was thinking right now. If Salido is considered dirty, Duran is considered the garbage man. So I think...
Yeah, he's faulty.
I think that he low blows his way to victory and a possible paralysis of Lomachenko from the waist down.
Cyril, your view on that fight? If it's sorry.
I don't think this fight sees the 10th round. He stops Lomachenko before the 10th round.
But guys, like, think about Lomachenko and Salido. That was fight. He was 1-0 at that stage, hey? He's developed so much since then.
Okay.
But he still gets...
Hayden. Listen, we entitled to opinions, bro.
Okay, no, but how does Lomachenko...
Why are you getting loud with all three of us? We entitled to opinion. And I haven't given my opinion yet, but I do think Duran beats him. I do. I just think he's just too hard, man. He's just too hard. And I think he turns him into a dogfight. And I just think he takes him out of his game from trying to do those angles and spins and those pivots. I just think, and if it's over 15 rounds, it'll be even more punishment for him. I do. And I'm not suggesting that Lomachenko is brilliant. I think he's one of the top 2 fighters in the world, top 3 fighters in the world. I think he's amazing. But I've got to go with Nat Fleischer, as he said, the founder of Ring, when he thought Roberto Duran was the greatest lightweight in boxing history. Gentlemen, I think we're going to leave it like that. Devin, your last parting shot for the show.
2 weeks more, Baba. 2 weeks more.
Cyril, your last parting shot.
Yeah, 2 weeks more. As Dave says, as always, everybody just stay safe. And if anybody finds alcohol, please send me some.
Hayden, I saw you sipping on some Kool-Aid earlier.
Energy, I don't know.
Is it energy? How come you're not drinking coffee? It's disgrace. Your last parting shot.
Guys, we've got to remember that Sugar Ray Leonard did beat Floyd Mayweather, by the way.
Lord, don't even go there. Go away. What's wrong with you? You're very bored, clearly, very bored.
Mayweather, right? Anyway, thank you for everyone that's obviously watched the podcast. Thank you all, of course, for being here, and keep safe.
Yeah, so from all of us, thanks for tuning in. This is the Boxing Lockdown, powered by SA Boxing Talk. We will see you very, very soon. Stay safe and stay home.